All right. Um, Welcome everyone to today's LCN and USDA LAMP Grant Forum on seafood and seafood systems. Thank you all for being here when there's potentially other things you all could be doing. We have a very full 3-hour agenda, and I'm really excited about the folks that we've been able to pull together for this discussion on USDA funding and seafood systems. This is something that we've been excited to do for a long time. So to see it happen today is fantastic. My name is Josh Stoll, and I'm an assistant professor in the School of Marine Sciences at the University of Maine. And along with Jordan Richardson, who's the coordinator of the local catch network, I have the pleasure of guiding us through today's forum. To help us get started today, my job is really fourfold. I want to introduce the local catch network and the work that we're trying to accomplish with all of you, review the goals and expectations for today's session and the agenda itself, take a moment to identify who's in the room with you all, and then provide one very important PSA about the local catch network summit that's coming up in October. Before I do that, I would invite everyone to take a moment and use their chat box to share their name, the organization or business that they're part of, and one thing that you hope to get out of this forum. So please go ahead and do that as we move through the session. To kick things off, I just want to say a quick word about the local catch network for those of you who may not be familiar with our work. We were established in 2011 as a grassroots network, and we're a values-based community made up of seafood harvesters, researchers, and service providers who are working to strengthen local and regional seafood systems across North America. And we focus on network building, on research and technical assistance. And we strive to be a hub for innovation and research related to community foods, for food systems and community-based fisheries. And we're based at the University of Maine and have further backbone support from the North Atlantic Marine Alliance. So we're really thankful for all of you to be on this call, and certainly if you aren't already part of the network, we invite you to be part of that and the work that we're doing. And you can see here we have members across the US and Canada. Our goals for today are pretty straightforward. We want to use this as an opportunity to facilitate a discussion among grant recipients with the idea of catalyzing collaboration. Those of you who have received USDA funding, ourselves included, often spend a lot of time focused on the work that we set out to do, with less opportunities to see across projects and think about how to leverage opportunities in the future. So a big piece of this is to say, how can we think beyond our own projects and think about how the work we're all doing is contributing to food system change and fisheries and community-based resilience. Second, we want this to be an opportunity for applicants who are considering applying in the future to USDA to learn about existing projects, to be inspired by the important work that many of you are already doing, and to walk away from this workshop with an idea about how they can move forward in the future, potentially to access resources. We also want to create a space for sharing sector-specific challenges and opportunities and ideas. Again, sort of going off of this theme that we often spend our time in our own domains thinking about these issues, but this is an opportunity to step back from our everyday work and think about how we can build, share our challenges, share our opportunities, and explore new ideas together as a broader community. And then built into the work today, we've also created space for prospective applicants to directly connect with USDA and Agricultural Marketing Services staff about the various grant opportunities that are currently open. So one sort of key expectation, we've tried to build an agenda that really belongs to all of you, whether you're an existing grant holder or a future grant holder. This is a space for learning, for sharing, for collaborating, and for connecting with other communities across the US, as well as representatives from the USDA. So we're really thrilled about that. And at the end of the day, we hope this is time for you. We've structured our forum agenda to be pretty packed with a number of different activities. We're going to kick things off here in a moment with a round of what we're casting as mini speed talks from LAMP grant recipients. This is an opportunity to hear about different projects that are underway. Some of them have been underway for a while. Some of them are just getting off the ground right now. So this is an opportunity to rapidly get a lay of the land. What has been funded? What are people currently doing? Then we're going to break out, and we have 2 breakout sessions starting at 3 p.m. Where the first 2 will provide an opportunity for prospective grant recipients, those who are thinking about applying this year or in the future, to meet with grant management specialists. And we've broken these breakout sessions into 2 different ones that we'll talk about in a minute based on which grants you might be applying for. And then we have a 3rd breakout room that's dedicated to people who have already received grants. This idea that some of you are already sort of in this space, and this is an opportunity to learn from and talk to and have a conversation across grant recipients. And then at 4:20, we're going to reconvene and do a second round of breakout. At 3:50, we are going to have, we're going to reconvene, and we're going to have a panel with grant recipients who can do a little bit deeper dive into the work that they're currently doing, hopefully to inspire opportunities for collaboration and also provide an opportunity for Q&A. And then we'll do one more breakout session, and this breakout session is dedicated and based around the idea of peer-to-peer learning and sharing, where we'll have breakout sessions with grant recipients, and the idea is that prospective applicants can talk to people who've received various grant funding. So this will be an opportunity for engagement with those who already have funding. And then we'll wrap up with a few sort of closing thoughts and next steps. So before I turn the podium over to Jordan Richardson, who can help us kick off our round of speed talks, I want to acknowledge USDA and in particular the Agricultural Marketing Services for making today's event possible, not only through funding for this forum, but also for having a huge amount of staff who's on this call, who have taken the time to say, we want to connect with current and future funding recipients. We care about the seafood sector. In some of the planning calls, it has been really remarkable to talk to and get to know some of the AMS staff, just to hear how committed they are to helping communities like you access funding. And so just my hat off to USDA for their support with this work, and really appreciate their focus on seafood, which is often left out of the food system equation. So with that, Jordan, I'm going to hand it off to you to kick off our round of speed talks, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. Well, yeah, really thankful to have everybody here today, USDA staff, past grantees, current grantees, and prospective grantees. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to get started in order of the type of grant project. Some people have received multiple different types of grant projects. And it'll just be good to get an idea of what types of projects fit within these different USDA programs and how those were framed and structured in order to do so. So to begin with, we will start with the local food promotion program grantees. And Kim Selko, I would love for you to get us started. And each grantee will have about 5+ minutes to talk a little bit more about their grant projects and who they're associated with and anything else they'd like to share with the group. So Kim, if you could kick us off, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, happy to. I just want to start by saying, like, it's so great to see how the local catch network has grown and thrived. I remember when Josh was still at Walking Fish in North Carolina and full of great ideas, and it's just been an unwavering sort of dedication to doing this. And it's fantastic to have Jordan come on board, and just the amount of support that USDA has shown this community has been fantastic. And to see that support growing and diversifying is great. So I will talk about my USDA grant. I have a LFPP planning grant that was awarded in the fall of 2021 through the Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara, where I'm the executive director. And we've had a long-standing need to work with the city on how to improve our infrastructure for the fishing community and the seafood producers here. There's a constant sort of pressure with gentrification, loss of space, things get too expensive, services move out of town, seafood processors move out of town. And so our planning grant really focuses on turning that trend around and coming up with a plan for bringing some of these services back. And so we started with surveys of our fishing community to get a sense of what are the top needs and what do the fishing community see as the reasons why this is happening and what the challenges are, and what are they willing to pay, what kind of arrangements would they like to see to use these services. So we've already done a lot of the work on the survey results, and what came to light is that a shared processing kitchen is really high on the list, as well as better access to welding and fabrication, and gear and boat storage. Now, the important thing is that an LFPP grant is very much focused on local food production and getting local food into the community, and training and helping harvesters get more for their catch. And so what we've had to be really careful about is dividing out all of that non-food related infrastructure of gear, storage, welding from the food production goals. And so, in writing the proposal, we had to be really careful, and we got a lot of questions from the USDA program officers saying, are you going to spend money on this and that? And assuring people, no, we're separating it out. And so the rest of our project as we go along is going to focus really on developing training for using shared food facilities, figuring out what people already know and what is the format that works best. And we really want to cultivate partnerships, because we know there's a lot going on out there to help fishermen gain these skills and gain the tools to market their catch better. And so we want to connect and not reinvent the wheel. So we're going to be kind of doing a bunch of research out into nationwide into what's out there and formulate a plan for that. And really start to think of, well, what's the governance going to look like for operating a shared facility, and how are we going to fund it? And so kind of building on the partnerships. Right now, our LFPP is done in partnership with both Sea Grant and our local city of Santa Barbara. So we went in front of the city council, and they pledged $25,000 as matching funds towards our LFPP planning grant. And then Sea Grant is donating time and expertise and is sharing one of our employees so that they have more support, part-time employees, so that they have full support. So it's a really nice arrangement. And these things, it's a lot hard sometimes to figure out how you're going to structure your partnerships and your grant funding. But so that was one of the tricky things, and I feel like it came together well. I've also been a part of another LFPP that Real Good Fish submitted back in 2018, and that funded a community-supported fishery program to be developed in Santa Barbara called Get Hooked Seafood. And that is something that I'm still the CEO of, and we had a big adventure getting that off the ground. So I'm happy to also talk about that process of designing an LFPP around starting a community-supported fishery program. And I think that's about it. Let me know if there are topics I missed that I'm supposed to touch on.
Yeah, Kim, really appreciate you sharing. Kim, and the rest of the people who are speaking today, if you guys would like and feel comfortable, would love to have you drop your name and who you're affiliated with, and maybe your website and email in the chat if you want to share that for people to follow up with you if they have additional questions.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing is, like, as the executive director of our port association, I do try to make myself available to fishermen who have questions about doing their own proposals, not just the LFPP, but also like the value added producer grants. And so if people have questions about that from my community or other communities, I'm happy to help do what I can. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. All right, up next we have Greg. Greg, are you on the call? If so, if you could unmute and share more about your LFPP project.
Yeah, certainly. And thanks Jordan and Josh and everyone else for putting this on. And Kim, it was great to hear more about your project. So I'm representing the Sustainable Business Network, and we're located in Boston or Cambridge, Massachusetts area. We focus a lot of our energy on food, but we also do some other work supporting independently owned businesses in a variety of sustainability efforts, including racial equity and solar work. And in this specific project that we are leading is an LFPP project, and we have been doing that since 2020. And it is focused on value-added products, both land and sea. And the approach that we have taken to it is is very much in a planning phase, inquiry phase, hoping to get implementation level grants in the future. And the objective of the project itself is to identify emerging products, identify demand for value-added products, and gaps in supply and demand. And that has been tackled mostly through doing consumer demand surveys and focus groups on what type of value-added products would be successful in different markets. And then additionally doing some focused interviews with farmers, with fishermen, with value-added producers and chefs and processors and buyers across the board, focus interviews to kind of get to the heart of the matter of what are barriers to starting some of these products, and also what are some really promising products that we can leverage some resources towards supporting. Where we're at with that right now is we've kind of gotten through a lot of those phases that I just talked about, and we're starting to wrap things up. And we've identified a short list of some really promising producers. I will say in the seafood realm, really what we've seen that we're excited about is products that take advantage of fish that aren't used as much or don't have as much of a market, like monkfish or dogfish, and but also products that can take advantage of a variety of products that are cross seasonality. That might be like fish sticks, for example, that you can use products across the board in variety of seasons. And I think that we're also exploring more options among seafood as well actively. And going forward, really where we're heading with this is taking that short list of products that have high potential in consumer demand and putting some resources towards them. Immediately, those resources are in form of technical assistance through strategic business development coaching, as well as doing promotion and tastings for among wholesale buyers, but also consumers, to get more R&D and feedback for those producers. But long term, we would love to apply for implementation level to create a business accelerator program that puts more resources in the hand of these producers that are looking to develop new value-added products across the board. Yeah, so really exciting work and glad to share here today and happy to answer any questions. I'll put my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Greg. Up next, we have Alan Lovewell. Alan, if you're on the call, you could unmute. There we go.
There you go. You'll hear me now? Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you all for coming together. Again, the intersection between USDA and our fisheries, in particular, local catch network, has been a long time coming, and I think it's really exciting again to remind ourselves that the work that we're doing is food system work, and absolutely deserves to be spotlighted and collaborated with the USDA on. So Real Good Fish was founded in 2012, and pretty shortly after we launched the company, we realized that what we were doing was pretty new to the coast and serving a lot of underserved folks. And so the first LFPP that we worked on was to expand the distribution capabilities of Real Good Fish and provide more access of our local seafood to the Central Coast area. And in that work is actually what happened is we, as sort of one of the side focus areas for the LFPP was a focus in on low income, low access areas. And so we mapped out our distribution points and set a goal to create more areas and distribution opportunities in places where we're underserved. And that actually became the bedrock sort of work that became Beta Tray, and our realization that low income, low access areas also could be considered, again, when you look at our school systems, the children that were being served in those areas. And so that ended up becoming sort of a stepping stone for the work we did there with Beta Tray. In our most recent LFPP, we worked with Kelmselco and Get Hooked to get the CSF off the ground in Santa Barbara. The focus of that work was again to sort of look at what we've created here in the Monterey Bay and try to lower the learning curve and expedite the ways in which we could expand again the seafood that's being caught on our coast. In addition to that, we were looking at what we were calling a powered by Real Good Fish model, which was really to sort of look at the ways in which we could connect with other like-minded seafood businesses and again collectively expand our impact. And at that same time, we around 2019 or so started shipping, and that was a really large transformation for the company in terms of creating more access and creating more market for the local seafood that we're procuring, the fishermen that we're working with. So that really sort of became like a major evolution for how we were thinking about the ways in which we're creating more market and more access for the fishermen that we're working with. And I would say that one of the most important things that we've learned through and through with our work is identifying the strengths of the business, and I think that's really important. As we carry these conversations forward, is leaning into your strengths, figuring out where you all excel. And for us, it was recognizing that our relationships with our fishermen and our customer base were essential and paramount and central to any expansive efforts that we were going to do in the future. And so it was sort of leveraging those relationships that allowed us to continue to do our work and expand it in a much bigger way. And I'm happy to share any more insight and stories, because as you all know, there's a lot lot to cover in these grant projects.
Yes, very true. This is the kind of the tip of the iceberg for these overviews of the projects, and hopefully today we'll have a little bit of additional time to dig a little deeper into some of the projects and the people who are leading them. So thank you so much, Alan. Believe we will start to transition over to a grant program as a LAMP grant as well. It's called the Farmers Market Promotion Program, which is somewhat similar to the LFPP grant, but it's an FMPP grant and has slightly different objectives for this grant program. And we'll have Samantha Garwin kick us off because she's currently at a conference and we'll have to hop off. So Samantha, if you could go ahead and unmute and share a little bit more about your project.
Sure. Thanks, Jordan. And I apologize if there's some background noise. So hi, everyone. My name is Sam Garwin. I work with Green Wave, which is an organization that trains and supports ocean farmers, primarily around growing seaweed, sugar kelp specifically, bi-coastally. And I lead the Market Innovation Program, which kind of picks up where the farming training program leaves off. And we work alongside ocean farmers to ensure predictable, scalable demand for seaweed products. And we do that through targeted research and pilot projects and value chain coordination. And we're really trying to identify and overcome market barriers and open new sales channels for these seaweed farms so that they can continue to grow more kelp and be successful businesses. And I'm normally in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but today I'm coming to you, as Jordan said, from Juneau, Alaska, which is very exciting for me. So for this, for the FMPP grant that we received, it was actually in 2020. I realized it was 2020 through 2021. We were building on a pilot market development program that we had started in 2019, providing technical assistance to a small cohort of emerging ocean farmers in southern New England to develop connections with buyers for the coming harvest season. And so the objectives of our project were to educate and engage value-added product companies to increase the number of sales channels for these kelp farmers, to build the capacity of local co-packers to process local kelp products and make them turn the kelp into a shelf-stable product, which could then lead to further consumer and online sales. We also wanted to develop marketing and sales best practices and provide training to kelp farmers who so often, similar to land farmers, get into it for love of the business, or love of the kind of the lifestyle and wanting the environmental benefits and all of that, but don't always think about, well, okay, but where am I selling it and for how much money and in what format and how is it getting there? We developed an online resource to help prospective kelp buyers find and connect with local farmers. And then we also are just sharing tools and resources online to support kelp farmers and the growth of kelp farming throughout the United States. And that is being done primarily through our online ocean farming hub, which is actually launching to the general public next week. So if you go to the Green Wave website, would really encourage you to sign up to learn more about that. It's going to be a full learning management system and all kinds of other tools to support ocean farmers. So the focus of this grant was really about that, taking the kelp that farmers are growing and really turning into tangible end products. And so there was a lot of, I would say, value chain coordination was the name of the game with that grant. There were some things that were really successful, other things that were really challenging. And I know I only have 5 minutes, so I would definitely encourage you, if anything I just said sounds interesting, please shoot me an email. I'd love to talk about it more. This was Green Wave's first USDA grant of this flavor. And so we learned a lot in the process.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, if you could drop the website in the chat so we can check out the project that you guys have going on and can share that opportunity, that would be great. And so yeah, Sam and Alan, if you guys want to drop both of y'all's websites in the chat just so people can peruse, that would be great. Next up, we have Suzanne. Suzanne, you have many grants that you can speak about, but I will leave it to you to determine the best way to share about the grants that you have received from the USDA.
Okay, yeah, we do. We have a few USDA grants, and I'll talk about those. The first one that I'll talk about is our LFPP planning grant. It's a 2020 grant, and so we're just closing it out now. We are creating an Acadiana regional seafood hub. I work with the Port of Delcombe in the central coast of Louisiana, and our goal for the Port of Delcombe has always been about sustainability of our community and of the local seafood industry. We took some serious hits several years ago with hurricanes, back-to-back hurricanes, and several of our shrimpers, which is primarily the seafood in our very local area, took large hits, and the community took a lot of hits. And so the Port of Delcombe made it its goal to do what it could to sustain the community as well as the local seafood industry. Our community of Delcombe is only about 3,000, I believe, in population. So it's a very, very small community, but very large in terms of the shrimping industry. So the LFPP planning grant is designed to create an Acadiana regional seafood hub, which is going to be, we hope, a hub for seafood products from the whole Gulf Coast, but at least from the state of Louisiana for the entire Gulf Coast, and to facilitate the development of seafood products from the Gulf Coast in a certified kitchen, which is going to be a commissary kitchen as it turns out. And we funded a feasibility study with that planning grant, a business plan, and a way to generate interest among producers and assess institutional demand for our food, for our seafood. So the feasibility study is complete, and we were very pleased with that. It's a feasible project with as little as 3% market penetration. And so we were very, very happy to see that. Actually, the idea of a seafood hub was identified in a supply chain study done by the local university and some other partners a couple of years ago. And one of the things that they recommended was a regional seafood hub. And so this project is an answer to that, working with some of our partners, one of which somebody else mentioned. We work very closely with Sea Grant and have for over a decade, and they've been an instrumental partner in all of our projects, including the LFPP grant. We also funded a business plan with the planning grant. That business plan is complete. We are, start to work, tick off all of the things and start to work on that. Just as a side note, it's impossible for us to do a lot of what we want to do without additional funding. And so, as Jordan mentioned, we do have other grants. And so we have since secured a grant from another agency for purchase of the land for the seafood hub and another grant for construction of the building. So we're real excited about that. We wanted to generate interest among producers and see what kind of participation we could get in the hub. And so part of the planning grant funding from USDA's LFPP funded some informational materials, some marketing materials, some educational materials. And we were able to have our first informational meeting. And we were very pleased to have about 50 producers from our region, including restaurants, fishermen, and a number of other food producers who were interested in participating in the activities of the hub. And then finally, we wanted to assess institutional demand. We did a little bit of that and sort of fell into that, but we were really stymied a little bit by COVID and all of the restrictions with that, because so many of the restaurants were closed for such a long period of time. So we are going to pick that up, even though we were able to do it a little bit. We're closing out the LFPP grant. We were able to meet all 4 of our objectives. And so we intend to apply for an implementation grant, but not in this round of funding that's coming up. It'll probably be next year. We need to construct the building first. And now I'm going to segue into the FMPP program. And we currently have an FMPP 2020 grant, but that's actually the 3rd FMPP grant that we have. And so for our farmers market, it's the Delcombe Seafood and Farmers Market. We have had 3 grants, and so I'll briefly talk about the first 2. The first one was an FMPP 2011 grant, and it was designed to just launch the market. We were able to create a business plan, hire a market manager, and open the market with that particular grant. Then we had an FMPP 2016 grant, and that was to increase direct market access of our seafood through vendor participation, primarily of fishermen and other seafood food producers, but we really just wanted to increase vendor participation. We were able to do that through some aggressive marketing and some marketing materials, advertising materials, a number of other things. One of the most successful things that came out of that particular grant, though, was we started to publish our recipe cards. South Louisiana, we're smack dab in the middle of Cajun country along the Gulf Coast. And so we were able to leverage that and the interest in our Cajun culture. And we started creating recipe cards. And that turned out to be an extremely popular thing that we did every year. We would cook every market. We would cook for the markets, provide the recipes, and then make the recipes available. So that was our FMPP 2016 grant. And then we currently have an FMPP 2020 grant. And there, what we wanted to do was expand the offerings of the market. South Louisiana has great food. We have a great culture, and it's not always the healthiest thing in terms of our food. So we wanted to launch a health and wellness campaign, or really a health and wellness component to the farmers market. And that's the primary objective of the FMPP 2020 grant. We hired a nutritionist, a health and wellness coordinator, a social media coordinator, and she is doing a phenomenal job. We are doing nutritional analysis on all of the recipes. We started when we hired her, I think, with 36 recipes, and now we have over 170 where we've done nutritional analysis. And in addition to that, she does healthy swaps. So she does low carb, low fat. She happens to have a gluten allergy, so she talks about that. A lower sugar content, and we do healthy swaps on all the recipes. So those recipe cards that we talked about, we're redoing all of those to include the nutritional analysis as well as the healthy swaps. We also wanted to do an aggressive marketing and promotion campaign to get seafood more in the forefront locally and regionally. And so we started a podcast. The podcast is called Hold the Gravy, and I'll put all of those links and all the ways that you can contact us or see things about us in the chat after we finish with this part. But it's Hold the Gravy. We have 13 episodes, and the idea is going to be for us to interview people who are somehow related to the area of the food, the culture, and of course, talk about health and wellness and those kinds of things. We hired a podcast producer, a podcast editor, and they do social media. And so we're doing all of that as part of FMPP 2020. We also wanted to recruit new farmers and producers, and we are doing that. We have a waiting list for our market. We're at capacity. We hold those farmers market in a covered pavilion on the waterfront in Delcom, on the Delcom Canal, which has access to Vermilion Bay and therefore the Gulf of Mexico. And so we have a waiting list every month for our market. So we're real pleased about that. And we're able to rotate vendors out so that we have a good variety for the customers. And then we wanted to enhance the kinds of outlets that we had. And to do that, we had to change a little bit what our initial intention was because of COVID. But what we've started to do a great deal of is outreach and participation with other entities to be able to get our name out there as part of the marketing and the promotion. But it's also a way to get our product out there and in more places. So for example, this past weekend, we participated in an event of the Louisiana Women in Agriculture. It was I think their annual conference. And we partnered with a local farmer at his farm where they came to do tours and to look at his farm. And we cooked and we talked about the benefits of seafood. He cooked, and they talked about the benefits of locally grown beef and pork and all that. And so we're partnering with those people. And in all of those places, what we're doing for our health and wellness is we're taking health issues and we're focusing on them and then providing educational material and seminars. So like, for example, right now it's fiber and health and alcohol awareness. We've done things about diabetes, heart health, cholesterol, and all those are available on our social media sites. And I'll like I said, I'll put all those links up there. And I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, if you could share links to all of the amazing work that you're doing, that would be great. And then somebody actually in the chat also asked if your feasibility study was available to the public. So I'll let you respond to that. But it looks like Nicola had asked. So, all right, on to another amazing project. Is Ben Hyman with us? on the call. I don't know if Ben is with us, so we might circle back if he's able to join a little bit later. But how about Andrea? Andrea, would you mind sharing a little bit more about your project?
I would be happy to. Hey, everyone. I have an interesting story about how I got here to this place here within FMPP. We received an FMPP in the fall of 2021 to develop and start the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance. And I was originally encouraged by Alan Lovewell's LFPP award in 2018. That was really, and I apologize, Suzanne, I didn't realize you had gotten one in 2016. That was really when it opened up my eyes and I said, wait, USDA funds fisheries projects? So I was really impressed with what Alan had done in that grant. And I've been trying to start the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance with funding since 2018. So that first put the idea into my head that, gee, maybe USDA would be a good funding source. So with the help of Local Catch Network and a lot of great USDA webinars last year, we were able to submit an FMPP to develop the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance. I'm sure everyone in fisheries here is aware of the phenomena called the graying of the fleet. And I'm learning that this is actually not a nationwide issue, it's a worldwide issue. Similar to many of the trades that we're seeing here in the United States, there's a lack of succession in the commercial fishing industry. And as the former general manager of New Hampshire Community Seafood, I worked directly with commercial fishermen and several farms. We would oftentimes pair our CSF pickup locations with local farms and their farm stores. So that gave me a really great background to enter into the FMPP arena. And what I noticed with my work with fishermen was quite obviously, as the veteran fishermen are retiring, we're not seeing any younger fishermen come in. And this is a problem, as I said, throughout the nation. And so succession is really dying in the commercial fishing industry. So what our grant intends to do, we're well on our way, is develop the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance as a nonprofit organization. And the USDA grant is funding 3 annual deckhand to captain training programs with a focus on collaborative marketing. Our partners are the New Hampshire Food Alliance through the UNH Sustainability Institute, the Rockingham Economic Development Commission, who will provide business training and modeling and budgeting for the trainees, 6 trainees per year, 3 annual sessions. We are also partnering with the director of the New Hampshire Food Hub, which is under the umbrella of the New Hampshire Food Alliance. We've just developed a New Hampshire Food Hub network here in New Hampshire, and I have asked them for the past couple of years to develop a seafood wish list. So the idea is to not only help the graduates of the trainee program each year, but the entire cohort of young fishermen here in the Northern New England region. I'm defining a young fisherman 18 to 45. And we're focusing on Southern Maine, New Hampshire, and Northern Massachusetts, and really trying to offer these young fishermen different strategies in marketing, because what they typically are doing is coming in, offloading to either a broker or an auction, and getting, you know, a very basic market wholesale price. So with COVID, we saw a lot of direct-to-consumer sales models that Local Catch Network was certainly helping to cultivate and refine and help grow. We saw that here in Northern New England, and I have a lot of young fishermen who are really interested in continuing that model for themselves. And what we hope to do with the New England Young Fishermen's Alliance is not only offer these collaborative marketing concepts, but obviously get 6 trainees per year into the captain's wheelhouse. This is not a greenhorn training program. This is not an apprentice program. This is a experienced commercial fisherman deckhand to captain program. And it's great to have New Hampshire Food Alliance on board and the New Hampshire Food Network as well. And we're also partnering with a woman named Jessica Gorhan, who has a food policy and food processes consulting company here in New Hampshire. She was integral in helping me get the grant into what I call USDA speak. No offense, USDA, but it was really helpful for me to have Jessica on board. And we'll get into that in the breakout sessions later. So I'm really grateful to USDA for supporting fisheries-based organizations. And I'm very grateful to Local Catch Network for all of the technical assistance that they've provided over the years, and particularly last year as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. And Andrea just put out an awesome press release. And I don't know, Andrea, if you could share that or a link to your Facebook page to spread the word
Sure.
about the program that you all have launched. And then also we'll be bringing in more cohort members over the next couple of years.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. All right, up next we have Thea Upham. Thea, would you mind unmuting and sharing a little bit more about who you're with, where you're from, and your project?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jordan. So hi, everyone. My name's Thea Upham. I'm coming from Farm Fresh, Rhode Island. So like Greg, we're not primarily a seafood-focused organization, but we do food systems work in the state of Rhode Island. And so we were just recently awarded a 2021 FMPP, one of the development, training, and technical assistance projects. And at Farm Fresh, Rhode Island, we do a lot of food systems work, and we manage a lot of farmers markets and also promote a lot of direct-to-consumer sales opportunities like CSAs, farm stands, and farmers markets. And definitely something we've seen over the past 5 years is a huge demand for whole fish seafood sales to immigrant and refugee communities that we're serving through our urban farmers markets in the cities of Providence, Pawtucket, and Central Falls. And definitely seeing a lot of seafood being sold across the street out of a car, like across the street from the farmer's market, out of someone's trunk. And so we're just sort of seeing there's definitely demand. We started to do some surveying with the University of Rhode Island to try to capture that, to help demonstrate the demand that would be there if we could have seafood vendors at farmers markets. And meanwhile, in 2020, in response to COVID, the state had opened a retail sales pathway for fishermen to be making seafood sales direct to consumers, because previously that was restricted. It was very restricted and limited. And so our project is really trying to grow off of this new opportunity that presented itself through COVID, and then also trying to find ways that we can develop safe and sustainable pathways for seafood sales to be happening direct to consumers in the ocean state of Rhode Island. And so we have a few different strategies that we're using in our project. We want to clarify and develop some of the best practices in order to be making sure that farmers market managers and seafood vendors know what the business permitting and food safety requirements are in order to make direct-to-consumer seafood sales, because that hasn't been clear because it's relatively new and there's only been 2 seafood vendors selling at farmers markets over the past 10 years. And so once we have this pathway created and established and sort of best practices made, we also are going to be working with both fishermen and new and beginning farmers on doing some basic retail sales trainings of like, what do you need to just start up sales at a farmer's market, how to do pricing, how to do some marketing, get a banner. And so that way they can sort of be set up for retail sales success, because selling retail is so different from selling wholesale. And then last but not least, we're going to be launching an overarching direct-to-consumer farm and fisherman sales sort of marketing campaign where we can be promoting all of these direct-to-consumer sales opportunities for both ag and seafood for the vendors that we're going through these training programs, and trying to like encourage, just get the word out there that we have more seafood sales opportunities available. And so we're really just getting our project started off to doing focus groups with market managers, working with the University of Rhode Island, cooperative extension through food safety, and also our Sea Grant on ways that we can be outreaching to farmers and making sure that they can understand any of these resources we're developing. And seeing what kind of interest there is in making direct-to-consumer sales in the state of Rhode Island. So relatively new. One encouraging thing that's been happening with our project that's really exciting is because that the state Department of Environmental Management was actually able to contribute some specialty crop block grant funds to support our own Rhode Island seafood brand, which is like a Rhode Island seafood marketing logo. And so we've been sort of trying to discuss how we can leverage any work that they're going to be doing to enhance the brand of Rhode Island seafood and fit it into our project, and how those two sort of align. And so if anything, we had no idea that they were working on that, but it's great because it's just demonstrating that there's interest in state partners in supporting the work that we're going to be doing over the next few years, but are really just kind of getting started. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for my 5 minutes.
Thank you, Thea. Yeah, it's really inspiring to see the incredible things that are happening in Rhode Island and the intersection and crossover between like agricultural spaces and seafood. And so I think you guys are exemplifying that in the projects that you currently have. So Thea would be a great person to chat with about incorporating seafood into farmers markets in your local area. I believe we will now transition to folks that have received the Regional Food Systems Partnership grants. So Natalie Sadler, if you're with us, would you unmute and share with us a little bit more about who you are, where you're from, and your project?
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Jordan and Josh and all of Local Catch Network for putting this forum together. It's really exciting, and it's exciting also to have all the USDA reps here as well. I will try to keep it brief. But my name is Natalie Sattler, and I work with an organization called the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association, which is based out of Sitka, Alaska. We're a nonprofit organization of commercial fishermen committed to sustainable fisheries and thriving fishing communities. And I also work with another sort of partner nonprofit called the Alaska Sustainable Fisheries Trust, and a lot of our programs and initiatives sort of overlap. So if I say Alpha, I may also be meaning ASFT. And one of our programs that I may talk to a little bit is called Alaskan Zone, and it's the first community support fishery in Alaska, and we do a lot of seafood share sales all over Alaska, as well as seafood sales all over the lower 48 as well. But I'm just going to give a little bit of background on why we got a Regional Food Systems Partnership project grant in November of 2021. And the background for that is when COVID-19 hit, it brought to light many of like the complex and longstanding issues that we've had in Alaska, including the need to increase Alaska's regional food security overall and U.S. consumption of U.S. seafood in particular. Also, we had declining wild salmon runs around Alaska as a result of climate change, and this compounded many of the issues around food insecurity. So in response to these increased food insecurity and workforce development issues in Alaska, in March of 2020, Alpha and ASFT, the other program, we relied on our existing Alaskans' own relationships and infrastructure and folks that we had worked with in the past to launch a collaborative seafood donation program. And as a result, as of around now, for the last 2 years, we've deployed $2.5 million to purchase and deliver more than 640,000 donated seafood meals to individuals and families in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest facing food insecurity. And so doing this not only addressed immediate food security demand, but also provided market stability during that time for our local fishermen whose supply chains were disrupted due to the pandemic. So we wanted to continue this project because there's always a demand, and we still have people reaching out to us all the time. And we do have some seafood still that we're distributing, but we were looking for ways to bring it to the next level. So we applied for the RFSP grant. We received it, as I said, but we didn't really get started until early of this year of 2022. The purpose of the grant is to assess the feasibility, it's a planning grant, of continuing our current seafood donation program in a way that's sustainable and scalable and effectively addresses the needs of Alaska's food insecure communities, as well as our small boat fishermen and the community-based seafood suppliers. So we're hoping the study will help inform the development of a 10-year plan for our program and also include a fundraising strategy. So to date, as a result of the RFSP, we created a steering committee, and this includes many of the diverse partners that we worked with during the start of our seafood donation program, from the tribal industry experts, other nonprofits, business and policy leaders, and project partners involved in the 2020 Seafood and Workforce Development Relief Initiative, and also working with some of our funders such as Catch Together and Multiplier, the Alaska Community Foundation, and others to sort of launch our steering committee. And so far we've only met once, but we're just, like I said, in the beginning phases, but we're reaching out to them quite a bit to get some feedback and information on how we can sustain the seafood donation program. We are also designing and conducting a survey currently of our past partners, and then the next step will be creating 2 needs assessments that will help provide us with important data to inform our next program activities and initiatives. And those assessments, one is more focused on food insecurity of Alaskans, and then the other one is more towards our seafood industry workforce development, including technical and capacity needs of the seafood industry. And then from there, we will create the 10-year sort of workforce development, seafood insecurity plan, and thinking about funding strategies, and then disseminating those results, maybe thinking about some value-added products, how to sustain the program overall. And so far, the program, it's been really great and interesting to work with all these different partners. We have the opportunity to investigate these areas of need and hopefully come up with some solutions within our region and our state. And let's see, I'm trying to think, we're just really trying to reach out to many different others, and I'll probably talk about this later during the breakout sessions, but just shared knowledge, like finding out what other feasibility studies are out there, what other needs assessments have been created, even in other parts of the US. So really trying to build on those partnerships. And yeah, I think that's about it for that grant. And I don't have a lot of, we did get an FMPP grant that was really before my time at Alpha, but it was around creating compelling like outreach materials and media toolkits, sharing information on the advantages of flash frozen seafood. And we also provided some technical assistance using tools that measure fresh versus frozen seafood. I'm happy to share more about both of those programs, but my knowledge is a little bit more limited on that second one, on the FMPP one. So that's fast and furious, but I'll just write some of my contact information in the chat, and looking forward to sharing more about it later on during the session. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Natalie. And I believe we have 2 more people. I think Ben just joined us, and before Ben, we'll have Amy give an overview of what she's been involved in, and then we'll have Ben, and then we'll break into some breakout groups. So Amy, if you could unmute, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Haas. I'm with Rural Economic Development Initiatives in the Pacific Northwest. And I think, we are an organization that supports rural communities to do economic development planning. It's very grassroots oriented, and we're very focused on community-led efforts. And I think, one thing that we see over and over again is that communities are not well positioned to access resources. So they have a lot of needs, they have tremendous needs, but they often kind of have trouble articulating what they need when they're going to apply for grants or putting proposals together or talking to donors. So that's kind of what much of our work is. So we're not a food system organization, and we're not a seafood organization, but we do have particular processes that we use to support communities that are really interested in kind of looking at a particular sector. We use an approach called the WealthWorks approach, which I can talk about later. I'm not going to go into it here. But for this, right now, what we have is an RFSP planning grant that we got in November 2021. We're in partnership with the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship in Washington, and we're working with them to really try to focus in on how can we support communities to create better opportunities for small businesses and entrepreneurs in the seafood sector. And we see a lot of kind of consolidation and a lot of power for big businesses, but often the little businesses really struggle. And so let's see. We have a kind of pattern that we go through. We do surveys, we do interviews, but I think really the centerpiece of this work is these community workshops where we gather stakeholders in the community, often the small businesses and entrepreneurs, fishermen, and we kind of carry them through the set of exercises. So we use a value chain approach. We have them kind of do a big mapping of the value chain. That's a big, post-it sticky note storm. And so they're really looking at kind of who are all the players, they're mapping it out visually, and then we identify opportunities and challenges that prioritize, like what is the most important to them, where do they think that they can have the most, if something is addressed, where is it going to be the most impactful, what's the most feasible thing that they can address, and then we have them kind of brainstorm as teams, next steps for this, who needs to be involved in different communities. And that kind of gives us enough information to help connect them to resources and to look for further grants and funding that can support them kind of develop these in greater detail. We do this, we're at the same time kind of building partnerships with other organizations. So one of our partners is the Nature Conservancy. They have also done a lot of market research on underutilized species. So we have these ideas of like, what are opportunities that we might be able to connect these communities to, based on the assets they have in place and their interests. So we're kind of simultaneously working with the communities and working with these kind of regional and state partners to look for those opportunities. This work is modeled on some work that I did along the north coast of Oregon since about 2016. And I think it's an interesting example of how sometimes the USDA funding can be layered or sequenced. So for the work on the north coast of Oregon, has started very much with these planning efforts, really working with communities to figure out what their priorities and opportunities are, simultaneously kind of scanning the industry to see what the trends and opportunities are there. We got a number of kind of planning grants from foundations, and then we got a USDA RBDG grant to look at cold storage in particular. And then most recently, the region got an RFSP implementation grant, which was a sizable grant that's really allowed them to expand. And it's looking at both seafood and agriculture. So it's really connecting a whole bunch of partners, and it's expanding that work a lot in terms of the scope and who's involved. And then now they've got an LFPP grant as well. So I think like all of this kind of groundwork to do this planning has, can really pay off in terms of organizing groups and enabling them to access greater scales of funding. So I'll stop there for now. Happy to answer questions. I'll put some information in the chat. And yeah, thanks so much for bringing us all together. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing. And we'll hear from Amy later as well. Ben, if you're on the call, will you unmute and share a little bit more about your project and who you are?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we had someone call in sick at the fish market today and another employee gone. So I'm going to be cutting local sable fish while I do this with you guys, although I am all ears and paying attention 100%. I own Wild Local Seafood Company in Santa Barbara, California since 2013. I've been a commercial fisherman in California since 1997 and direct marketing seafood to the public since then. I saw a huge gap that needed to be bridged between local seafood being demanded by the public and some sort of vessel or way to get it there to them. And I created Wild Local Seafood Company. We do farmers markets, network with chefs, do some stuff like e-commerce, home delivery. And over the last X amount of years, because profitability was always slightly behind things like ethics and the motivation we had for running the company, I started to take notice to some of these grants coming out that would possibly benefit my organization. And last year, we were lucky enough to be awarded an FMPP grant, an expansion grant, because we already had the critical infrastructure in place. And basically, the grant that we had authored and what we're trying to implement and do is we are creating a blueprint for other fishermen to follow in my footsteps. And both of the guys in here are both commercial fishermen working with me. So other fishermen's footsteps and trying to understand the process of how to get into farmers markets, some of the impediments you might face, the laws, things like food safety, and possibly open up the door for other people like myself. And then I'm also interested because the grant process seems, so foreign to me, even though I have a 4-year degree. And the vernacular was like legalese. I look forward to hopefully in the future networking with other fishermen that felt like they possibly couldn't get a grant. It seemed impossible. Helping aid them in understanding what my undertaking meant and the impediments we had in that process too. And I appreciate everyone being here and networking and look to learn some stuff from other folks today too.
Thank you so much, Ben. We will drop your website into the chat so people can check you out.
About the work that you're doing so that people eventually, come out of the woodwork, or folks, that learn about it say, hey, look, I got an idea for you. And what's interesting about that is that these ideas start to take a life of their own, right? You start to be less of sort of the command and control center for, some of these projects, and you actually start to become much more of an inspiration and a much more sort of a facilitator in a greater effort. And so I think that, is a really sort of salient point in terms of understanding that what you're doing in your work is, it doesn't just live within the confines of the project as it's defined with the USDA. It starts to take on a life of its own. And again, if you're working with the right people and you're working with the right communities, amazing capacity and amazing ideas and energy and inspiration, can come out of that. Just in the idea that the USDA is helping you do something that you believe in, and people will start to want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I love that comment, Alan. It reminds me of a sticky note that Linda Bankin once gave me about 10 years ago. I still have it. And it says something about, she just opened a can of worms. And your comment about people coming out of the woodwork reminded me of that comment where sort of Linda's like good at opening the can of worms, and these ideas come out and just take a life of their own. So anyways, yeah, thanks for sharing that image. It looks like we have a question from Ben. Ben, do you want to unmute yourself and fire away?
Oh, I just was going to make just a comment, general comment. Maybe there's some more fishermen on here, but we have a broken system with seafood in America that we're all trying to kind of fix. Over-reliance on imported goods and non-domestic fish. And we have these robust, sustainable fisheries. And there's just a gap we need to bridge. And everyone, I think, or most people on this call are trying to do that. It's commendable. And, I think it's imperative that everyone kind of recognizes the guy who's really suffering is the guy at the end of the line, metaphorically and literally, and that's the fisherman. And we're stuck in a dock sales system. We're going to give you the bare minimum for a product that other people really, really are yearning to get. And if we can facilitate that, my organization through its grant, other organizations through it, or just even creating hope for other fishermen to do a little bit more direct marketing, make an extra $1 a pound, put a little more food on the table. I think it's super important. No one loses sight of that, and it's the guys who have their boots on the ground, their extra toughs on the boat, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I really appreciate that comment. Maybe before we go to sort of responses and last words from this panel, we could also field a question or comment from Jason Jarvis. Jason, if you want to take a second to unmute yourself and comment, please do.
Yes, glad to hear what Ben had to say. I'm a artisanal fisherman out of Westbury, Rhode Island. We have 30 boats down here that are under 30 feet, and we have no commercial fishing infrastructure. We have no, pretty much nowhere to sell our fish, which when COVID came about, the state of Rhode Island changings gave us a dockside sales endorsement so that we could sell our fish. Well, that was great for everybody that lived where they had a municipal dock and had a 60-foot or 80-foot dragger. But for the small boats that were at private marinas or that trailered their boats, we had nowhere to sell our fish. So worked for some, didn't work for others. But because of that, we started a project 2 years ago. It's now morphed into what we're calling Fresh Harvest Kitchen. Luckily partnered with the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District, and they helped us with that. I'm on here just for educational purposes because, again, I always laugh, dumb guy, smartphone. But if you want to know, how to tie some knots and mend a net and catch some fish, I can help you out with that. If you're lost at sea, I could get you home. But to that point, we were lucky and fortunate to get some grant money. But now, 2 years later, we're looking at doing a soft opening of this place. All I put into this was blood, sweat, and tears because there was no money. I couldn't even get a motor for my boat thanks to COVID until 4 months ago. But I think part of the issue is, as Ben said, the fishermen were at the end of the line here. I don't write grants, know all about them, don't write them. I spent 8 years of my life in social work before I ever became a fisherman. I understand the bureaucracy, I understand the red tape and all the BS that comes with that. But for just the layman and the fisherman who has no clue how to do any of this, what do we do? Who do we talk to? How do we manage this? I mean, like right now, we're ready to open. The only thing I need is an ice machine. Can't afford it. Where do we go from there?
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and Ben also, thank you for your comment. I wonder if maybe we could do a quick round with sort of reflections on either of the comments or questions that we just heard.
Sure, I can certainly say some things that we've been able to do. I think that one thing is that we're, some of this work is trying to change. It's like moving an enormous ship that's sort of heading in a particular direction. And that's, it's related to globalization, it's related to, industry consolidation. It's really hard to move this and it takes a long time. I think where we've had some ability to shift is when we convene communities and we really get them working together. And then, as a group, if they are able to prioritize and kind of, identify what the future can look like, then we've been able to successfully link resources to those communities. But it's hard work and it takes a long time.
I would say we're seeing the same thing here along the Louisiana coast. We don't have as many shrimpers as we used to have. We don't have a lot, somebody said it earlier, I'm not sure who, we don't have a lot of younger family members going into the business. We don't have as many shrimp shops as we used to have. And so I think it's a systemic problem. I wish I had a solution, but I do know that we are able to get the fishermen through some of our programs a little bit more money than they could get when they just sold dockside, through word of mouth. And so I think what Amy just said, it's going to be a long process, and it's tough because imports are hurting us, the domestic seafood industry. And with our e-commerce site, one of the things that we've also noticed is that sometimes we have a hard time meeting demand. We could sell more if we had it, but we don't have it.
I'll add that I think the way we operate, and I think it's just because this is how the organization, Real Good Fish is really set up, is, we really believe that demand is the driving force that will enable us to do more of what needs to be done. And so, we take that approach, again, as I mentioned in the introduction, that, we lean in on our fishermen and our sourcing capabilities, as well as the members who, have shown to have, such encouraging and dedicated support of who we are and what we do, and the service that we provide them. And, for us, it's how do we get more people involved? How do we increase the awareness around, our domestic fisheries, around the plight of the local fishermen and the graying of the fleet, right? All of these issues. How do we increase that awareness and remind, our membership base, remind our communities that we're doing good work, we're supporting the right people. The hard part obviously is, again, for a lot of people, that it's a financial decision that they can't make. And I think that's where some of these projects can become exciting in terms of, again, thinking about how we reduce the barriers to entry for folks to pay the premium that the fish is worth and the fishermen deserve. But again, that's what, from my perspective, from what I've seen, this is the type of stuff that the USDA is excited about, right? This is why they've come into this space to say, like, there's an opportunity here to look at this again from a food justice standpoint, both for the fisherman's standpoint and the consumer standpoint, right? And I think the projects that, everyone is working on is trying to alleviate, those issues and those barriers one way or another. And I think, anyone who's writing new grant proposals should look at it through that lens and make sure that, you're really seeing yourself as someone who's reducing barriers and creating more opportunities, again, for the fisherman or for the consumer on the other end.
I don't know if I really have much to add. I think Alan basically said it all, but yeah, I'm just grateful that USDA has these opportunities. And as I mentioned in like our smaller group, like our organization, others, we're applying for lots of USDA grants because they're meeting the need that we see and trying to get more resources out there, more products, things that we can support our fishermen with, and trying to make it accessible to consumers, that they can afford, to purchase seafood from Alaska. But we are, anyway, you guys have said it well, and I'm just happy to be a part of this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, and I want to thank the entire panel for sharing these thoughts. Clearly, in retrospect, thinking about the timing of this, we could have had more time. I want to acknowledge, Andrea, you have a hand up and give you an opportunity to share a comment or make a point. And then also, Jason, I see that you've added a comment, and so maybe you could have the last word in this discussion before we hand it back over to Jordan to take us to our final breakout session. So Andrea, the floor is yours if you have a brief comment you'd like to add.
Yes, brief. I promise my long-winded self will keep it brief. So just to Jason, hi Jason, great to finally see you on a Zoom. You are infamous in this part of the country. And to Ben as well, I feel you on the industry part. I really, really understand where you're coming from. And I know fishermen typically do not enjoy asking for help. If I may just throw out a stereotype that seems to be rather accurate. I know fishermen do not enjoy sitting on a computer a whole bunch. So what I have found working with industry for the past almost decade is that the key, aren't you, you're the president of NAMA, correct?
Yes.
Right. For those of you who don't know, that's the North American Marine Alliance here in Gloucester. It's like networking to me seems to be the key. And unfortunately, Ben did it. He's an industry guy. He asked for help. I am so impressed, Ben Hyman, if you can even hear me while you're filleting, that you pulled this off and did it. Kudos to you. And there's a young woman on this call that I'd like to just acknowledge. She seems like she's trying to write a grant all by herself. She's in industry. She's an Alaska fisherwoman. And don't give up hope. I can tell she's really like, I don't know if I can pull this off. collaboration is really key, and networking, and unfortunately having to ask for help, which, you know, I know a lot of us don't enjoy doing, I find is the key too. And I just keep pounding the pavement for my industry guys. If one door closes, I just keep trying to find an open door. And I'm sorry you're having a hard time with funding for an ice machine. You are not the only industry guy I hear saying this. But, you know, I think we need to acknowledge that fishermen don't have time to sit down and review RFPs and write grants. So it's a real precarious position for industry guys to be in when they desperately need the help, and they could certainly outline what they need, right? But the follow through and the implementation seems, you know, like a mountain that's too hard to climb. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate that. And Jason, I don't know if you would like to take the last word or not, but certainly if you would like to expand on your comment in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really funny, Andrea, because the person that started this project with us 2 years ago walked away in October because he was overwhelmed. He actually sold his fishing license, sold his boat, sold everything he owned, and was done. I don't give up that easy. I've been fighting my whole life. I'm a half Bahamian, half Swamp Yankee, so it's kind of tough to kick me out of anything. But yeah, I recently just spent probably 30 hours a week on a computer, which hurts my head. Passed all 3 HACCP courses, seafood HACCP, every HACCP course there is. Dealing with Rhode Island permitting processes, which is a nightmare. I don't care what state you're in. Rhode Island is 49th in the country with starting a small business. We've been fighting an uphill battle, and we're starting to win. We actually are doing a soft opening May 1st, May 2nd. And we're getting it done. And it's just, I'm a fighter, always have been. I don't give up that easy. So that's all I got to say with anybody, any fisherman that's in this business. Just think of it as, you know, you just went out on a day where the weather was supposed to be nice, and all of a sudden your bilge pump broke, your generator failed, and you still got to figure out how to get home. So done that a few times too, and the boat's on fire. So all of those things have happened in my lifetime, and I'm still here. So, you know, keep fighting. And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, really appreciate hearing from those of you who are on the front line of the seafood sector and doing out on the water. With that, I want to again thank this panel and turn it over to you, Jordan, to take us into our last breakout session. Hopefully the energy is still high. This is an opportunity for grant recipients and prospective future grant recipients, we'll call everyone, to have a conversation. So sort of thinking about sort of asking questions. Welcome back, everyone. Jordan, if you don't mind hitting record again to make sure that we get this last piece recorded for archives, that would be great. So first, a big round of applause to everyone for hanging in there for 3 hours. This is really, really fantastic to hear from all of you. I'm feeling inspired and fired up and wanting to work with many of you and sort of reach out. So I have a big to-do list here in the coming next few weeks. We're going to spend the last few minutes, we're going to get us out right on time, doing a couple pieces of house cleaning and acknowledgements and sort of setting the stage for next steps. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of you for taking the time today, especially the folks from USDA, the grant recipients who shared your perspectives through your speed talks, through the breakout sessions, through the panel talk. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so useful to hear from different people and hear stories. I hope each one of you has made a new connection or has some idea about follow-up or idea to seed your work. At least Jordan has a little icon that says woo, so that's good. So thank you. So that's first and foremost. We will have a recording of today's session, as well as a whole bunch of USDA resources available to our community, posted on the Local Catch Network website. So maybe Jordan, you could drop a link for everyone for your perusing. We'll get the recording up in the next day or two. In addition to that, we would kindly ask that for those of you who have 12 minutes, we at some point in the next few days, we'd love your feedback on how we did, what didn't work, what does work, what you would like to see in the future. Maybe we could do something in person in the future instead. So we're going to drop a link to a survey. It takes 12 minutes, so says Qualtrics, and would love your feedback. That's really important to us, so take that seriously. And good news, that's not all. In the next few weeks between now until the time that LAMP grants are due in May, we're going to be hosting a number of different activities and sessions. We're going to do a set of bi-weekly office hours for those of you who want to connect. That's going to include some grant recipients. There's an opportunity to meet with again and talk about your ideas with the current grant recipients as well as USDA staff. So thank you in advance for those who have volunteered to do that. Jordan is sharing a link. Our office hours are going to be from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. And there's a few sort of special ones on April 15. We have some folks from USDA's Architectural Services. They do work to help people design facilities and to think through how you actually build out infrastructure. So really good opportunity for those of you who are thinking about working waterfront. On the 29th of April, there's going to be a Q&A session with USDA with the FML FPP grants. Don't start then. Hopefully you're already starting, but this is an opportunity to have more engagement. And then on May 13th, we'll have a session as well. The specific focus of that is to be determined. We're also offering weekly sort of advisory call, one-on-one advisory call opportunities to chat through ideas, to share feedback. And so Jordan will also add into the chat an area to sign up if you're interested. Don't worry, you don't need to be copying down all of those. We'll also send it out in an email afterwards. One more thing on grant prep. If you're interested in having an extra set of eyes to review proposals, you want feedback on your proposals, that's something we're also offering. We're able to do that with a number of proposals last year, and we would like to offer that opportunity again. Our goal is to see everyone in this network, in the work that we're doing, get funding to catalyze the important work to uplift seafood as an important part of the food system. So we're doing that. A lot of things to come if you're interested in continuing to move forward with USDA funding, and there's any way that our community can be supportive of you. So I'll stop there and pause on that to take a breath and say, yay, lots of good stuff. Also, I want to do a shout out. In October, the Local Catch Network is having our 4th summit in Girdwood, Alaska. It's going to be an amazing event. We encourage all of you to consider participating, attending. We'll have some sponsorship opportunities rolling out in the next little while. In addition to that, we're thinking about how to bring together the band, or however you say that. Thinking about an opportunity for some of you who are on this call to go and talk about USDA funding and your experience. So stay tuned for that. If you're interested in presenting on the cool, amazing, important work that you're doing, or you have ideas for sessions, it's not too late to submit an idea. They're rolling in right now, but I think the deadline is April 15th or April 17th or something like that, a week or so. If you need a little bit of grace period, let us know. Don't tell anyone we said that, but it's true. Yeah, certainly want to accommodate ideas and thoughts. So I'm going to stop there and say thank you for taking the time to be with us. Thank you, USDA. Thank you for the panelists. Thank you for future grant recipients. Really nice to connect with you. Really pleased to have all of you on this call for 3 hours late in the afternoon. So thank you, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.